So first of all, I'm going to make sure that the character is roughly, that's all right. I thought it was going to be, yeah, because we've been working with something that is not too big. So this size is fine. If you want to change the size and you have multiple subtools, so if you click Unify, let's turn this off. You see how these obviously change the size. Let me undo that. So I'm going to take the current subtool, click Unified, and that makes it much more manageable. And then I can take the eyes and click on Unified. But then it's like, okay, I thought that was like the whole point, to simplify everything. Just keep in mind that if you unified subtools independently, it's going to look at the entire volume of that subtool, and it's going to unify it to the 2x2x2. So that's why they're different. So let's undo that. So instead, what you can do, and this is a simple trick, especially if you have a character that has multiple subtools, or if you decide to split this in multiple subtools, a simple thing you can do is go to the C plugin palette, click on the transpose master, click on T-pose to mesh. So this is going to take everything that is visible, send it to a single tool or a temporary tool. You see it is a single tool or subtool. And then you can just click on Unify, and everything is going to be unified at once. It's the same thing as posing the character. But right now, all we're doing is sending to the transpose, unifying it, and then we can bring it back. And that way, everything that we sent is going to be unified to the 2x2x2 units. And then we can keep the two subtools separately. So that's an important thing. All right, so now that we know that this is unified, we can confidently click on Dynamesh, let's say, like this. And you see we have a plenty of resolution, although I have 416. Let's set it to something more standard, like 128, right? There we go. So something like this. Obviously, this is too low resolution. So let's undo that. And here's the first step of step 4. So step 4 is taking everything and dynameshing. So one thing you can do is from the resolution slider, click and drag. And you see as I drag, my resolution is constantly changing. That is really good because it's basically picking up the areas where your mouse is and say, okay, if you want to describe the detail that you're hovering over, let's say around here, you need at least 352, right? So I'm just going to leave it around here, 500, just because I want the cleanness of the neck. That's kind of like how much resolution I want. And click on Dynamesh. All right, let's double check. Yeah, this is not too bad. All right, so let's undo that. Because, let's do it again. Before I'm going to set it to 500. And that's going to be my resolution. So it's going to be probably different from yours. That's the only reason I'm saying you can, click and drag to select your resolution. Yeah, so now that you have sort of defined what resolution you should start with, and like I said, 500 in this case is plenty. You can click on groups, and that would be on the geometry. And this is kind of like the tip or something that is not as usual, in this process. So Dynamesh, I'm going to click on groups, right? Before I Dynamesh. And look what's going to happen. So I'm going to turn on my polyframe, change my skin shade for, just to show you. You don't have to do this. So I have a bunch of pieces that they all have different groups, right? So if I click groups and I click on Dynamesh, ZBrush is going to Dynamesh everything, but it's going to keep the groups, right? Now, I just noticed that I have some extra groups that I don't want. So I'm going to undo that. And I'm going to make sure. Okay, so this one, I'm going to smooth this out a bit so that I don't see it. All right, Dynamesh with groups at 500 resolution, Dynamesh. Okay, so this is really powerful because we can continue to explore the shapes and refine things using Dynamesh, but we still have the ability to work with groups, right? So I'll show you what this means in practical terms. I want to switch to one of my custom brushes that it's available in the ZBrush Guides website as well if you want it. Is the Clean Builder brush. And if you don't want to use this, if you don't have it or you don't want to go and get it or whatever, you can just use the Clay Builder brush. It's the same thing. The main difference is that it just builds volumes a little bit slower and it has like a cleaner stroke, right? So I'll show you what it does. So you see, it's a cleaner stroke. It doesn't have those sort of cuts that the clay brush has. So that's the idea. Now, but because this is a Dynamesh object, I can just go ahead and start maybe blending these two, working on the transitions a little bit, like so, right? Building this up, smooth this out, like that, right? And this is, I mean, it is getting kind of like pushed towards each other, but that is fine. I can redynamesh, right? And I'm continue to have the groups. So I will be able to say, okay, I'm going to concentrate on this area. I can hold Control and Shift to isolate it and work on this area and continue from there. Now, one thing that I will suggest, once you are in the Dynamesh resolution with groups, is to make sure that you have the same groups on the left-hand side to the right-hand side. It's not a big deal. You can always mirror and well, but you see that the jaw has two different colors and these ones as well. So I like to just do mirror and well to make sure I have the same thing on one side as the other. It's mirror and well, right? So that, for example, if I went to isolate this portion of the jaw to work on it and hold Control and Shift, I can select both sides and I can keep working with symmetry, right? So this is really powerful. Now, the next thing we're going to do before I start like refining this as another tip is if you have a very clear distinction, let's say between the head of your creature and the neck or the jaw, that sort of thing, it would be a good idea to split it into subtools at this point and continue the refinement process like that. In my case, I think I can get away with having everything into a single, a single subtool. I'm going to actually push these things down a bit. And that this is another cool thing that like I said, you can keep refining things with the move topological because it would still respect those polygons. So I just want to give this guy a bit more of a rib cage, even though it's just going to be a bust. So what I was saying, let's go back to clay buildup. Clean buildup. So what I was saying is that you can combine things together. So that is a simple process, or not combine, sorry, split things together. So it is a simple process that you can just go ahead and start isolating the pieces that you think can work nicely as single subtools. So let's say, I'm not going to do it, but I'll show you how that could work. Right. So I could just go ahead and hide those polygons or those groups. So I have this one and I have this one, and I can split those from the split hidden. So in the split subpalette under the subtool palette, you can click on split hidden, and then you're going to end up with two different subtools. And that has some benefits. So you can keep independent resolutions and you can have potentially more subdivisions in one than in the other, or you can have like eventually, if you do a UV mapping, you can have two separate UVs, so it does give you more texture. But I'm not going to worry about any of that. That's like already getting into the technical side of things, which is important, but we're going to try to keep things within the concept and keep things simple, really. So I'm not going to do that. The only reason I'm mentioning is because I did that for the first creature. Like I said, because there is a clear distinction or a clear divide between two pieces, and it is easy to hide it, like if we have two different subtools. So let me just show you what this one has. So if I go into solo mode, this is basically one subtool. So it's just the neck, the bust, and the jaw. And then I have the head on its own, or like the top bit of the head, let's say the maxilla and the rest of the cranium of the creature. That's on its own. And then I have the teeth or the fangs separately. So and the eyes. So 4 subtools make up this creature, right? But if you look at it, and if I go all high to show you with all the details and stuff, you'll see that it is a fairly simple way of hiding it, because it kind of like makes sense, right? I mean, you can tell here at the back that there is a division between the subtools, but I'm not going to have a close-up here and show like, okay, this is the back of the head, right? I'm not going to do that. So from this angle and from whatever angle I'm going to render this creature, because again, it is a concept, this works just fine. So I just wanted to mention and make that clear because it is important. So in my case, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep working like this. And the idea, I'm going to start holding the Alt key just to push things in and then adding volume. So this is going to be a very repetitive sculpting process. So feel free to, do the same thing yourself. Just there's nothing too complicated here other than just refining some volumes. And as I do that, I'm just going to talk about a little bit of the design choices I'm making, and something that hopefully is more practical for you to keep in mind when you're doing your own creature. All right. So I think I'm starting to see some good ideas in here, and I don't see much changes in terms of the objects that I'm gonna make. So as in, I don't need to keep the groups anymore. Sometimes I these the length of this step will vary depending on what you're trying to achieve. So if you're not entirely sure of what you're making or like the type of shapes that you're going for, these might take you longer. But I think generally I'm happy with how this is going. It is very bumpy and lumpy here, so all of those things we're gonna take care of in just a second. But in general, I think it's looking good. So what I'm gonna do is turn off groups, increase the dynamite resolution slightly, and then redynamesh. So now we have a solid mesh that has no gaps or no open holes or anything, and we can go ahead and start smoothing things out. So I'm just gonna use my smooth brush really quickly to simplify things a bit, not too much. In fact, I'm gonna press Shift, right click, and reduce the intensity a bit so that it doesn't override everything in a single stroke. So in other words, I need to apply more pressure, gives me more control.